Greetings, and welcome back to the MCOC Encyclopedia. Today, we'll be covering my progression guide for all content in the game up to the end of January 2024, and in what order I think you should do it. And with that, let's jump in. So here is my progression guide for Marvel Contest of Champions, and by that I simply mean what should you be doing next. This is very approximate, and it will change depending on your roster and admittedly skill level. Before you just screenshot this and run off, do let me explain what's going on. Everything that is in the same colour, so sort of the green down to dark green, can be done in any order as long as it's in the same box and has no prerequisites. For example, you can't do Act 6.3 before you've done 6.2, so you have to do 6.3 after 6.2. But you can do any of these at roughly the same time. Realm of Legends, the Variants, the Road to the Labyrinth, and Act 6.2 you could be looking at all at once. It's entirely up to you what you focus on. And in fact, the rewards for Realm of Legends are really rather outdated, and so I wouldn't really suggest doing it unless you can do it effectively itemless. The same applies for the Road to the Labyrinth. The rewards are incredibly outdated here, and originally this was required to do Labyrinth of Legends, but that is no longer the case. So these two I can't really recommend doing. You should always be looking at doing these though: the monthly event quest, the monthly side quest, alliance quest and alliance war, battlegrounds, arena and incursions. These will honestly provide you the most consistent resources. Do also remember that the monthly event quest and side quests change every month, so they are worth focusing on particularly at the start of the month and pushing as far as you can. All of this isn't going to change, or if anything it's only going to be made easier. Focus on these first. If you're sat there wondering what to do with your energy, these are more important. Continuing down then, variants are very much still worth doing, in my opinion, though which one you do is up to you. I wouldn't really bother with 1 and 2, particularly not 1, that is horrible, but particularly the later ones, the sort of 5 to 8, are worth looking at. They are heavily roster dependent. Each variant focuses around a different type of champion, so if you're really lacking Mystic champions, then doing the Mystic variant is going to be quite difficult. But if you have lots of hero champions, doing the hero variant won't be too bad. As I said, these are all in the same colour of green, so you can do them in any order as long as there's no prerequisites. If you go from 6.1 and keep going through 6.2 and are going, this is pretty easy, keep going. Push as far as you can without spending a huge amount of resources. Even if you've got most of the way through a quest, but you're going to have to spend 1,000 units on the boss, it's really not worth doing. I currently have a full Act 6 progression guide in the works, so we can get up to about here. Following that, really worth checking out. Once you've got Thronebreaker, or at least you've completed 6.4, you move on to the next box. Here, you can start on Act 7, and honestly, if you can get through Act 6, Act 7 shouldn't be too bad. There is not much of a step up between Act 6 and Act 7, and in fact, many would argue that Act 8 is even easier than Act 6, so it really doesn't step up too much. However, you can start now looking at these things. Labyrinth of Legends, unfortunately, not worth doing unless you can basically do it itemless. If you have a rank 4 6-star Aegon, you will absolutely go through it, no issues, but the rewards just aren't worth it. I would honestly, if you're going to do it, put it down here somewhere, and just do it for basically for free. Karina's challenges, though, are certainly worth looking at, particularly the Volume 2 ones. I wouldn't bother doing any of the Abyss ones early on, because we'll come on to that later, but some of the shorter ones are definitely worth looking at. Shooting Stars is absolutely worth doing, and can really, really accelerate you towards getting your first 7-star champion. Hopefully you'll get a good one. There isn't a huge amount of difference between 7.1, 7.2, 7.3 and 7.4, so if you can go through them at least once, that'll really help pushing on with your title progression. You need 3 rank 4 6-stars in order to get that Paragon title, as well as doing 7.4. Doing 100% Act 7 I would put down in this box here, but I would also put 100% Act 6 down there. Act 6 can be very tough, very niche, and very specific with what you have to bring, and the rewards kind of aren't worth it. Unless you, for some reason, have had absolutely god luck all the way through and just have the perfect counter for everything, I wouldn't bother wasting your resources just yet. On to our last box, and here we have some of the properly endgame things. Act 8 isn't really too bad. The nodes aren't too niche, and you can kind of bring, as long as you've got a decent counter, you'll be fine. So I would recommend ploughing on with Act 8 as quickly as possible. Abyss of Legends unfortunately falls in with all the other Legends content and is just not worth doing at the moment. It is too hard for the rewards. Unless you somehow made it down here and you still don't have a rank 3 6-star, Abyss of Legends will supply you one, but there are significantly easier ways of getting tier 5 CC. Eternity of Pain and Grandmaster's Gauntlet, again, you can do in whatever order you want, just depending on your roster. I stuck Act 8 at the top of this box because if you can get through Act 7, you can get through Act 8, so I would say just go all the way through here. Once you've done that, focus on the other endgame things. Eternity of Pain, I would just go through a run-through. If you've got a big Hercules, just go through it and then look at the objectives. This is Karina's Volume 3. There are some quite specific requirements that you need to complete these objectives, so I would just go through an initial run-through to get your rewards and then look at the objectives. Unless you have a lot of spare revives and a big Juggernaut. He can clear out 2 objectives at once, so if you really want to do it that way, you can. Grandmaster's Gauntlet follows a similar vein. There are plenty of good guides out there, and maybe one day I'll make one myself. But follow that and pick up what you can. Grandmaster's Gauntlet is similar to Eternity of Pain, and which one you do first is entirely dependent on your roster and who you have available. There are no objectives for the Gauntlet, so just bring in whatever team you can use to clear and pick up those rewards. Finally, we have the newest content, as of the time of making this video, which is the Necropolis, and I have split it out into the initial run-through and 100%. The reason for this is the initial run-through not only gives you an extra mastery point, which is very nice to work with, but also provides you enough to get your first rank 3 7-star. With a bit of whaling, you can get a second one, and therefore get your Valiant title. If you're still free to play, you kind of need to go for that 100% to get your guaranteed second rank 3. So, that is the order I think you should complete MCOC. However, always be doing these ones first. If you are wondering, should I go into story or should I do the event quest? The answer is almost always do the event quest. Push as far as you can and as hard as you can. There are still decent rewards in the event quest for doing things 100%. So say you've just reached Cavalier, but you can only do the first chapter of Cavalier. Do that. You can still get good rewards there, even if you then do 100% in the lower difficulties. Get yourself in a good alliance, and this will help really speed up your progression. Push yourself as far as you're willing to go. For Battlegrounds, if you have a smaller roster and you get to Platinum, firstly, congratulations. But secondly, Platinum is where matchmaking kind of goes out the window. You will suddenly find yourself matching people down here, and they will massively out-roster you, and you will struggle. Feel free to push as far as you can, but if you suddenly get there and go, what on earth is happening? That's what's happening. If you have no soul, Arena is for you. I would not recommend grinding for 5 or 6-star champions unless you are seriously down here, and by this point you're probably looking at 7 stars anyway. You simply don't have the roster size to do it, or you are going to have to spend a lot of units just refreshing your top champions. Do it for the units, do it for the 3s and 4 stars that you can pick up automatically in the rewards. But when you see people saying, oh, I've put up 200 million points for a champion, do not do this if you have a smaller roster. Finally, incursions, a bit of fun, and a surprisingly good source of ISO. I've seen a lot of people saying, I haven't got enough ISO to rank up my champions. The number of 4-star crystals you can pick up from incursions is very, very high, especially if you've got a friend that can help carry you. More 4 stars, more dupes, more ISO. So, there we have it. My progression guide up to and including the end of January 2024. I have plenty more things in the work, including Nasty Defenders, continuing the Act 6 run through, and we will have a Masteries Guide video coming out soon as well. Thank you, and I will see you next time.